特別的話，主啊，耶穌嘅道不止給路給擔憂，係給太陰這個。Amen. So there are times in our lives where we feel like we're just losing everything. And so what do I mean by that? We feel like everything is slipping away, or we feel like we're just losing it, falling apart. Everything around us is not working. This didn't happen, that didn't happen. And when we feel like this, we feel under pressure. And when you're feeling under pressure, it gets to us. So I know that we have college students here, high school students here, and maybe last semester, there was so much to do and so little time, and things are just slipping away. Maybe you missed some deadlines. How about our parents, mom and dad? And I know we try to balance work and home and family, and maybe at work, pressure is mounting up with new projects. The boss is asking you to do this and that. Maybe one of your coworkers went on vacation, and now you have to cover for that position, for that role. So you feel like you are working with less. Yeah, we sometimes feel like we're working with less. And like with everything in our lives, when we feel like that things are slipping away, nothing is going right, and when that pressure mounts up, we sometimes will make the wrong decisions under pressure. And we lose focus of where we might put our trust, and we lose focus of just keep on going or moving forward. So this week and next week, we're going to be focused on just one word, go, G-O. And like Adora said, next week our district president's going to be here to give a message. I told him, I'd like you to come back every quarter, so he's going to try and come back every quarter. So we're going to be focused on the word go. I'm looking forward to his message next week, and I'm looking forward to seeing all of you back here and some of the families that are traveling this week too. It's an important week. Whenever he comes and gives a message, like Adora said, they support us so much, so come back. Let's show them a full house. We'll have a full band next week, hopefully. This will be exciting. I told him I'm going to show him a full band this time. Last time he came, it was just the acoustic, and so we're going to show you a full band this next time. So come back. So our text this morning is from the Old Testament. This is my second time I'm preaching from the Old Testament, so bear with me. And this is during a time when God's people were wanting to be like other nations. They wanted to have their own kingdom. They wanted to have their own king. And before this time, God's people were led by prophets like Moses, Elijah, and others. So let's read our text this morning. It's a little bit longer, so I'm not going to read it long, because when you have a long passage, it's going to be double the length and long. We're reading from 1 Samuel 14, 1 through 10. One day, Jonathan said to his armor bearer, "Come on, let's go over to where the Philistines have their posts." But Jonathan did not tell his father what he was doing. Meanwhile, Saul and his 600 men were camped out on the outskirts of Gibeah, around the pomegranate tree at Migron. Among Saul's men were Ahijah the priest, who was wearing the ephod, the priestly vest. Ahijah was the son of Ichabod's brother, Ahitub, son of the Phinehas, son of Eli, the priest of the Lord, who had served at Shiloh. So no one realized that Jonathan had left the Israelite camp. To reach the Philistine outpost, Jonathan had to go down between two rocky cliffs that were called Bozez and Shinah. The cliff on the north was in front of Michmash, and the one on the south was in front of Geba. "Let's go across to the outpost to those pagans," Jonathan said to his armor bearer. "Perhaps the Lord will help us. For nothing can hinder the Lord. He can win a battle whether he has many warriors or only a few. Do what you think is best," the armor bearer replied. "I'm with you completely, whatever you decide." "All right then," Jonathan told him, "we will cross over and let them see us. If they say to us, 'Stay where you are, or we'll kill you,' then we will stop and not go up to them. But if they say, 'Come on up and fight,' then we will go up. That will be the Lord's sign that he will help us defeat them. This is Samuel 14, 1-10, our text this morning. Jonathan told his armor bearer, the guy who was with him, let's go. That's what we're going to focus on. So this is a newer story for us this year. And some of us are, maybe we're familiar with this story, but most of us or some of us may not be. So let me retell the entire story for us. So like I said, this was a transition for God's people from being led by a prophet to their first king. And we're talking about Prophet Samuel and King Saul, the first king. And during this time, God's people were battling with their enemies. And one of their enemies, God's people, were the mighty Philistines. So King Saul became the first king of the Israelites. And his first task was to push back the mighty Philistines. And King Saul had his son, Jonathan, that's his son. And one day the two decided that they're going to go and battle the mighty Philistines. So Saul took 3,000 soldiers with him, and Jonathan took 1,000 soldiers, and they went. And quickly Jonathan went and he defeated one of the Philistines' garrison, their camp. And the news traveled to all over the Philistines. And so they regrouped. And they came all together and were massing this big army coming in front of the Israelites. And our Bible says, the text says that as many as the grains in the seashore, on the seashore. That's a large army. So this caught the Israelites soldiers off guard. They're at a very big disadvantage now. And some of the soldiers hear about this massive army mounting up in front of them. And they start to fear for their lives. So some of those soldiers ran back home to their villages, their towns. Some went into hiding. And Saul sees his men trembling with fear. So he called Samuel, the prophet. Samuel, come and let's make a burnt offering to God. We need God. And Samuel told Saul that, okay, why don't you go to Gilgal and wait for me for 7 days there. I'll be there. 7 days comes, it passes. And Samuel's still not there. And now Saul is like, what? Where's Samuel? Because Saul was faced with a problem. There were this massive troops mounting onto him. He felt under pressure. He felt like everything was falling apart, things slipping away, working with less. So Saul told his troops, go and get the burnt offerings and bring it to me. I can't wait for Samuel any longer. I'm going to do the burnt offerings myself. So he did. And when Samuel finally arrived, Samuel says, what have you done? So I couldn't wait for you anymore. It's been 7 days and things are falling apart. My men are trembling with fear. I need to go. Some of my men are running back home to their towns and villages. Others are hiding. And my enemy, our enemy, is mounting towards us. I need to do something. I need to go. So I did it. And Samuel said, you are not supposed to make burnt offerings. God's law says that only priests and prophets could do burnt offerings. You have disobeyed God. You have not kept the commandment of your Lord, of our Lord your God. So our story continues with Jonathan, his son. So a few days later, Jonathan tells his armor bearer, let's go. And that's the text we read this morning. So while Saul was back at Gilgal under that pomegranate tree with his now only 600 soldiers, frustrated, feeling his back against the wall, things are slipping away, working with less, Jonathan felt different. Yeah, like Saul, he wanted to do something, right? So Jonathan snuck away with his armor bearer. Let me read verse 6 again for us. Let's go across the outposts of those pagans, Jonathan said to his armor bearer. Perhaps the Lord will help us. For nothing can hinder the Lord. He can win a battle, whether he has many warriors or only a few. Remember what Jonathan's armor bearer said to him? Do what you think is best. I am with you all the way. The two of them had a plan. And here's their plan. Their plan was that they were going to go over to the Philistines' outposts, and they were going to show themselves to the outpost guards. And if the guards say, stay where you're at, or we'll kill you, then they will stop. They won't go any further, and then they'll turn back to their camp. And if the outpost guards say, come on up and fight, then they will keep on going. And this is the Lord's sign that he is with the two of them. And this was their plan. Let's go. God would do the rest. So they went. And when they got there, the Philistine guards saw them and shouted at them. That's what our text said. Shouted at Jonathan and his armor bearer. Come on up here. We'll teach you our lesson. That was it. That was their sign that God is with them. Let's go. So they climbed up. And suddenly, the outpost guards, they fall down, and then the two of them go and kill those soldiers, and then they climb on up, and they go and they killed another 25 or plus soldiers, bodies scattered everywhere. And then the Philistine army panic broke out everywhere. And then there was this earthquake, and that shook them up even more. And our text says that the panic just caused them to cause a lot of problems. And as this was happening, Saul's lookout soldiers, they're seeing all these, the Philistine army just having chaos everywhere. And so now they rush in, Saul's entire army. And as they got closer, they see the Philistine army killing each other in the dark. There was confusion all over with the Philistine army. And soon after, all those Israelite soldiers who went back home, now they come back. The ones who were hiding, they came out. They joined in on the chase to push the Philistine back. And that day, the Lord saved his people, God's people. And that all started with just two guys, Jonathan and his armor bearer. Let's go. God will do the rest. Feeling under pressure. They're saying that people's true color comes out when they are under pressure. You get to see the real person. Sometimes that's true, sometimes not. But how are you when your back is against the wall? You might feel you are losing everything, but you also know that you need to keep on going. That's just life. We can't stop. You have to continue to go, even when things are falling apart in life. This is just who we are. But where do you turn to? Who do you turn to? Where do you put your trust? There's this saying. Maybe you guys have heard about it, but if you just put in 10,000 hours, it will make a difference. If you put in 10,000 hours, you would get through whatever that needs to be done working with less. So when you are working with less, just do more, right? Sometimes true. We put our heads down, we keep on going, and something will break through for us. What's the word I'm looking for? There's a word here. It's called be resilient. So whenever I think about that word, I think about this one time when I had someone working for me in the office. He's a newer guy. He's young. I think he was just out of college a few years. His name was Joe. That's his name. And so Joe was one of those guys that took him a little bit longer to get through things. That's just who we are. And we are an accounting team. That's kind of things I do. And it's a boring stuff, right? And so Joe was assigned to do something, and I knew he was struggling with it, so I would stop him once in a while just to check in. During that week, I noticed that Joe was in the office earlier than me. And then when I leave for the day, I'm walking by his desk, and I would see Joe just still working. It was just who he was. Heads down. Just put in 10,000 hours, and we'll get through it. Things will come up. Things will come around. That's probably what Joe's thinking. He was resilient. So I told myself that if I ever went to battle, hopefully that would never happen, but if I ever went to battle, I would rather take 10 Joes than one superstar. Because I know that when things are against you and falling apart, you know that you will keep on going. And if you fall down the hill, because we're all Joes, we're just going to keep going up the hill. This is just who we are. We put our heads down, working with less. And our perseverance will get us through it. We have the right attitude. We are resilient. We have the right character. But when Saul was faced with working for less, his true character came out. And some of us know a little bit about Saul, right? Who he was and how he saw God. He knew that he had to do something. He knew that he had to keep on going, let's go, but he broke some rules. He broke a rule when the enemy was mounting against him. He broke a rule when he was working with less. And Saul had nowhere to turn. Because the one guy he relied on, Samuel, wasn't there. And I'm thinking that Saul's probably thinking that even if I break a rule, God might be okay. Because I'm the king. And God's enemy is upon us. So what did Saul do? Saul waited. He waited under that pomegranate tree while under pressure. He waited for something to happen. He waited for God. But Jonathan and his armor bearer saw something different. When God's enemy was upon them, they still went. When things were slipping away, they knew that they were working with less. But then they also knew that God is with them. That God would show up. Because God had always been with them. They had this tremendous trust in God. And what did Jonathan say? Let's go. God would do the rest. So God honors tremendous faith with tremendous victory. And in our story here, Jonathan showed this tremendous faith in God. He trusted God would be there and would show up. Even when it doesn't feel like God is there. Even when it doesn't feel like God is around us or doing things, he knows that God is there. Do you know what the name Jonathan stands for? a gift from God. So when I think about that, it reminds me of the tremendous victory you and I receive as a gift from God, Jesus Christ. So there's this one time, Jesus said to his disciples, let's go to Jerusalem. And this is where Jesus had his tremendous victory. He defeated death, and he is alive. And he lives in you and me because in our baptism, we are joined with Jesus in his death and resurrection. Jesus is our tremendous victory. He's our greatest resource. And this is why we are never working with less. So when we go, when you and I go in our week, when we go and serve God, and when we feel like we're working with less, and when it's just the two of us, a few of us, Jesus is saying, go. I would do the rest because it is my victory, not our victory. Let me close with this for today. So you guys know that we have these two little grandkids. They're not here today. One of them is sick. And I look at all of us here, and some of us are grandparents. Some of us are young parents. Some of us are parents. I know some of us are still family planning, trying to grow our family. But know that God is there with you, even if you don't feel it, to grow your family. So Kia she's over there watching the kids. Kia's constantly posting these pictures on social media and stuff. And so this past week, when I was in California, and you guys know I'm in California this week and the next 3 weeks, reading my butt away. We're reading like 100, 200 pages a day. Yikes, right? That's a lot. And so I see this picture come across my phone. You know, the little time that we can escape from our studies, I see this picture with our granddaughter. She's just 1 year old, and she's sitting on the back of her 2-year-old brother. And I'm sure their mom is nearby taking all these pictures of the two. She's probably just very excited with happiness or joy just to see this bond being created between these two little people at such a young age. So these are two little people with nothing. But they had each other. And also the boy had his iPad that he carries with him all the time, right? But I don't think these two little people care that they have very little. I don't think these two little people care that they're working with less, because they know and trust that mom and dad is always there. So that picture, they were just relaxing at the park while dad's playing soccer. They're probably thinking, let's go. Mom and dad will do the rest. So go this week. Let's go. Jesus will do the rest. It's his victory, not ours. Amen. Let's stand for prayer.